Welcome to Simply Joy by Kristen. I'm Kristen and I'm so glad you are here. If you notice, we've got a lot happening back here. I am moving booths, so if you want to see more, stick around. So a booth move. What a way to start 2026, right? Well, let me give you a little bit of backstory of how I'm where I'm at right now. So for the past year, I have been in a coaching group and we've been working on a lot of things, and one of them was a vision statement. And then someone else shared about being a good steward of your booth. And if I was being honest, I was not being a good steward. And there's a lot of reasons on why I wasn't, but we can maybe discuss that another time. And then we had a session about pivoting, and I just had like that aha moment of, do I need to close the door on one chapter so that I can be prepared and ready to say yes to something else? Because as I was doing some reflecting, I wasn't having time for some of the key things in Simply Joy's vision statement. And so I was like already in a state of mind ready to let go of the booth or have it look different. But I didn't have a solution. I didn't have an answer. And we had our very last session in December, and we did an exercise of more of this, less of this, start doing this, stop doing this. And I literally said, I held myself accountable by sharing with the others in the group that I was going to start with a plan of what I was going to do with my booth. Guess what? The very next day, December 19th, I was working at the shop. And within an hour or so of being there, the owner came in and nonchalantly said, "Hey, there's a spot opening up in the garage. Do you want it?" And the thing about the garage is I hadn't really wanted that space because it wasn't as protected from the elements. It either got colder during the winter and hotter during the summer, and a little dustier and that. But secretly in my mind, I had not shared with a single soul. There was one spot in the garage I was willing to move. Only God and I knew. No one else. I didn't even share with my husband. And that was the spot offered. In addition to this spot, it was smaller. And I think we have a mindset of the hustle and bustle and wanting to go bigger and more and this and that. And not that I didn't love my space. Please hear me on that. And I needed to move to that space. And there was a season for that space. But I was ready for something smaller. Something that I could be a really good steward of. And yet be open to other things to say yes to. Because where I was currently, like I said, I wasn't being a good steward, and it was too much to be able to say yes to other things. And because I already had the wall space, I knew that I still could have the rice papers, and I knew that my creations or things that needed to be a little bit more protected could be on the wall. And so I was in a place to say yes. And I think sometimes we have to do some work behind the scenes, set a little foundation and reflection, and then we can be ready for those yeses. And I look back over 2025, and it prepared me to say yes to the booth. So my upstairs booth on the second floor was approximately a 9 by 7 space, so about 63 square feet. and the one that was on the ground level or in the garage was approximately a 5 by 5-ish space, so 25 square feet. So you can see it right here with the previous person. And that is going to less than half the space. And so I had this idea to have an Elsa Let It Go sale because I was moving on the 1st. Like, I made the decision on December 19th, and you know that there was the holiday there. So on December, I think, 23rd, I went and I marked things down. And I had a couple really large pieces of furniture that I had been using for displays, and I was so concerned on what I was going to do with them because we did not have a vehicle large enough to move them, and they weren't going to fit in the new space. And I just remember just praying about it and just really concerned. And so before the public saw what I had to offer, I put it out to the vendors of the shop first privately, and within, I think, 15 minutes of sharing it with them, the biggest 2 pieces sold to vendors in the shop. And what a relief and what an confirmation that I was making the right choice. It was a God moment. That's all I can say about that. And so I ended up moving on the 31st of December, and you saw what that looked like, a little sparse, but I'm going to be a good steward of this spot. And with that, I am going to constantly be bringing in new things, and I'm going to be very selective and intentional of how I style and what goes in it, and have creative fun again because it's a smaller space. I only have to worry about 1, maybe 2 kind of vignettes or styles, and I can change them more often, right? Now, if you noticed that I stamped the N incorrectly on my Be Mine, you should have said something. I stamped 6 of them before I realized the mistake I made. So I practiced my watercoloring on the oopsies because why not? But I'm going to add a little bit more splatter and they are going to be perfect. Something else I did in January that I haven't done in years is thrift at the start of the year. The past 3 years, I have done a thrift fast. The first time it was only a month and a half, but the last 2 years, I haven't thrifted the first 3 months of the year, and it ends for my birthday scavenger hunt. If you know, you know. If not, come back for, the end of March, beginning of April, and I will be sharing that adventure with you. But we had planned to thrift on January 3rd before the booth change because I was in a better mindset. I had done so much work and reflecting on how to thrift, how to source, how to create, what am I drawn to, what do I need to keep in stock, what do I not need to keep in stock. And we as small creative businesses and booth owners almost have a more is more mentality that we have to fight through, and more is more isn't a good fit for me. I need to be more selective and more intentional, but I don't need to have more and more stuff. In July, I did a really thorough decluttering of my creative space, and I am now working on other areas because I see the difference that it created for me and how much more I have clarity, and I can think, well, my space in the garage where my inventory is was not decluttered enough. And so starting the year, I was really overwhelmed with how to change over the large booth. And the difference of having the smaller booth and just my mindset of the excitement and looking for treasures for it. And I found a couple things for kind of like a Valentine theme, but not overpowering. So it was just so much fun to thrift and source. I was at one of my favorite thrift shops, Karen Share, and I came across a few things, and it just naturally happened into this pink vintage romantic Valentine vignette. I found that pink hanger and a little, I think it's almost like a salt and pepper shaker, but I'm going to turn it into a little bud vase and that plate. But my favorite was that beautiful forget-me-not glass paperweight. And then at another thrift shop, I found a heart cake pan and a heart frame. And then for my stash, I took some items such as the brass vintage frames, and I use Jamie Ray vintage decoupage paper. I purchased this from Create Your Own Cozy. I have an affiliate link, so if you do not have a stockist, feel free to use the link. It helps both Heather and I out, but it doesn't cost you anything more. And I put them in the frames, and I'm going to be adding them to my booth, and I'm going to show you what it looks like. And the garland I was making, I think it was just a perfect little touch of Valentine in my booth without being overpowering, if you follow what I'm saying. I am so happy with all the additions I just made to my booth. I love the combination of things that I just found and the things from my stash and how they complement and blend so beautifully together. I am looking forward to seeing my vision come alive here, and you'll notice that there's still gaps and I still need a display piece or so, but that's okay. I am going to be more intentional and more selective. And what does that look like when I go into a thrift store? Good question. I was going to the Habitat for Humanity Restore to see if they had a display piece after doing this, and unfortunately they did not have a piece of furniture that would work for me. They had some really cool pieces, but again, I was being selective. However, I did come across a few things, and some things I said no to. But here is what I said yes to, and it was less than $10 total. 3 of the pieces were for me, the Mickey, Minnie, and Cinderella. Cinderella is my sister's favorite, so I don't know if she's going to get it or if I'm going to keep it on her behalf. You know, wink, wink. But the items that I chose was that pail. How cool of a shape is that pail? It's going to go perfect with the spring vignette I'm already creating and cultivating and just gathering things for. Perfect. The nest is also going to go so well with that. The playing cards. Why would I buy the playing cards? Well, let me show you why. I made this the other day and realized that I needed to have more cards on hand. And so when I saw this vintage deck of cards at the thrift store, I was okay to get. I was being intentional because I knew that I had a need or a purpose for them. However, you also want to leave a little wiggle room for creativity and inspiration. Like, you don't want to be so rigid. And so I came across these vintage chicks, and as soon as I saw them, I thought of the phrase, "It's fine, I'm fine, everything's fine," right? And I think we have those moments when we are decluttering and simplifying and we're on this journey because it's messy, it's emotional, and I'm sharing it with you, but I am still working through it. And the thing is it's something you have to continue to do. It's not a one and done when it comes to decluttering and simplifying. I'm on this journey and I'm seeing hope, and I'm making choices that are best for Simply Joy by Kristen, and maybe they don't make sense to others, and that's okay too. But I hope this encourages you to create for yourself, find what is good and right for you, and I hope to see you on our next video, which will be on February 6th. Until then, friend, thank you for being here.